everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney Phone-In Show. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, the author of the Positively Disney book series and your host from where those books and the show came from. I just want to wish everybody a happy Star Wars Day today and welcome my Facebook folks and my Twitch followers. Due to my back-to-back guests, I'm so excited to introduce you to. We are going to get a hold of our very first guest right off the bat, and we are calling Melissa Kurtz, and she is a lovely human being who had an amazing time with the with the whole Star Wars family. We're just going to get her on the line now. And welcome, Chris and Donna and Seth and Tony. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Here we go. Hi, Melissa. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much. And may the 4th be with you today.
Oh, thank you.
I know we are under a certain time constraint here, but I just wanted to introduce you to the folks. And I'd love for you to tell us how you became a part of the Star Wars universe, the original Star Wars universe, which is, one of my favorite eras because it was the beginning. How did that all come about?
It started a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yes.
And when my father, Gary Kurtz is my father, and he was working with George Lucas on American Graffiti, and they were thinking, what's next? So right there, the beginning of that is they talked about their Saturday cereal, Buck Rogers favorites. They wanted to make something fun like that. So they developed this idea of Star Wars, and it became a thing that they helped create together. And my father was the producer of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. And that I was around, so I got to be part of the universe because he was.
Oh my goodness. That is what an amazing experience for you and your journey, I think, and wonderful to have a dad like that. I know you traveled a little bit, and can you tell us some of the places that you ended up visiting because of your dad's work on Star Wars?
Well, first of all, we got to go to England because that's where the movies were made. Yeah. So we got to live in England for a few years while they shot the movie at the EMI Elstree studio. And we got to visit the studio there to watch the movie being shot whenever we could, whenever we had a break from school. Yeah. And then we also got to go on location. So the two major locations we got to go to were we got to go to Tunisia to be in Tatooine, and we got to go to Norway to be at the Hoth area.
Those are two amazing field trips that you've that time, I would imagine. They
were great.
Oh my goodness. And it's just something that, they were otherworldly, really, it's definitely not London, England, and it's definitely not United States, so that would have been absolutely phenomenal. Now, because of I think being in the right place at the right time, having the right dad, you ended up being in part of the films as well. Can you share with the audience what your part in the films were?
Oh, yes. Both my sister and we got to be Jawas.
I love that.
So it was great. We were there. We were traveling with our father and with the crew, and we were on the set, and he needed some little people to scurry around and fill the space with atmosphere, and he happened to have two little people handy. So he said, why don't let's suit up and go out there? And so we got all dressed up as Jawas and went out onto the set, and therefore, we're in the movie. We can see ourselves on the big screen in the original movie. It's lots of fun.
Oh, my goodness. I think that's just crazy. So what were the costumes made of? Because I'm thinking it might have been kind of warm there. Am I right?
Yeah, it was very warm. It was definitely really, really hot. The costumes were made out of, sackcloth, this really thick, almost burlap kind of brown fabric, and we were wearing rubber boots on our feet that were wrapped in fabric too, and then we were wearing on our face a nylon balaclava covering our face with some holes cut in it to see out of, and the yellow lights were taped into the inside of that with duct tape. Duct tape is the fabulous thing, and so we looked like little creatures in the desert.
Oh my goodness. So you actually, I mean, there's a few of you Jawas scurrying about, and you can actually spot yourself still.
Yes, I can. I'm the one scene that I really know where I am is I'm in the scene where R2D2 gets shot. There are two Jawas in that shot, the one with the gun and the one without the gun.
Yeah.
I am the one without the gun on the left side.
Oh my goodness. I have to go back and watch that now because I did catch you in Cloud City. I remember that, but I just think that is so amazing. But that's, I mean, those are long filming days, and we'll get to who you kind of hung out with and what you did on those days. But I had mentioned that you were in Cloud City. What part of Cloud City were you in?
We were in the part where everybody's running away when the alert has been announced. Everybody's escaping the city and grabbing what they can and running.
Gotcha.
We're in that scene. The crowds are running, and when Princess Leia and Lando run one way, we are running the other way. So we're right there in the middle of the screen. We can see ourselves running the other way. So obviously we're not going to get on the same ship they are.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think, gosh, you guys are quite young, and everybody's kind of running quickly. They're not just walking briskly. They're getting out of there. And I would have been, were you frightened at all by all the crowds running in the same direction, or did you just kind of go with it?
Oh yeah, it was just fun. It's just, it's one of those things that like all the crowd stands over here, they say action, and you run like pell-mell as fast as you can the other way, and just like you're running away from a disaster, because that's what we were doing.
Oh, that is so good. I love that. You guys had a lot of time on your hands to to do things. And what are some of the things that you did while you were on set? What are the things that you what kind of things would you do? I mean, because it's not like you had access to a whole lot of things when you were out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yes, well, there's some things you can do. You can play games. One of the things we got to do in Tunisia is play out in the sand. The great vast expanses of sand were actually a little bit damp.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily look like it, but right around the sand crawler and the Luke's homestead, that was all pretty damp. So as long as we were out of view of camera, we could just go out onto the sand and play. We'd get a stick and play tic-tac-toe in the sand, that kind of thing. So that was fun.
Yeah.
And when we were around the set, we would hang out with the actors, and because everybody was waiting, it's a hurry and wait business as you sit around. And
sure.
So we got to talk to Mark, who was very nice. He was very sweet, and we played games with him. And with Sir Alec Guinness was also on there. We played Battleship with Sir Alec Guinness because we're all passing the time.
Oh, that's so fun. That I think that's pretty special that you got to actually hang out with those guys. Any others that you hung around with during that time or interacted with particularly?
We interacted with all of them mostly. I mean, if we were there on the set, we were trying to be quiet and not disturb things. Right. But most of the time, if anybody was there in a separate off the side moment, we hung out with Tony Daniels. Also, we got to talk with him. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was in Tunisia. If we were when we were back in England, we had more of the people, and Carrie and Harrison were both also there that we got to talk with in the snow scenes in Norway.
Oh.
Carrie and Harrison were very involved with that, so we actually got to be there with them, and we played cards with the people who were not in the current shots. We all sat in the hotel and played cards a lot. So that was fun too.
Gosh, those are extreme temperature changes. My goodness. No, so I mean, with your dad being producer and all that, did you ever have a chance to celebrate the films in some way with your dad?
Oh yes, for sure. We celebrated just by being excited about it. We sometimes went to the movie theaters to check on the audience and hear their reactions, and get a feel for things.
Okay.
That was really cool to be able to do that. And also we got to go to the footprint ceremony at the Chinese theater. That was a great big moment, and we'll remember that forever. That was a really exciting thing. We go back and visit the footprints to see them all.
Oh,
and our our dad wrote he wrote some of the words in the cement for R2D2, so that's his handwriting. They would get to smile when we see that too.
Oh my goodness. That must now I'm trying to think. So that would have been after the first like A New Hope, right? Would that have been, or was it Empire that you guys did the footprint ceremony? Do you remember? Do you recall?
I think I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was in celebration of Star Wars, maybe even after a year of it being in the theaters or something. Like
right.
it was a while after the first release, but it was still related to Star Wars.
Right. Did you did it draw crowds? I mean, it was such an unknown idea to begin with, and I was just curious to know for the footprint ceremony. I would imagine it would have gathered momentum by that time.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I think we didn't realize how big it was going to be, but it was one of those huge crowds pushing in on all sides kind of moments that is probably the source of aerial photographs from this day of the whole courtyard filled with people. A lot of people are very excited about it, so that was really exciting for us too.
So that day that you were at the footprint ceremony, so R2D2 was there with your dad because your dad signed for him. Who else was involved in that footprint ceremony?
Tony Daniels was there as C-3PO, and David Prowse was there as Darth Vader.
Oh my goodness, boy, oh boy! That's definitely a historical moment, not only for Star Wars franchise, but for the world, really. For that to happen. And isn't that wonderful that you can actually go back and there's something physically there, to remind you of that time. I think that's
really fun.
Yeah, really special, because it's not like you're going back to Norway and all that, to reminisce about your time. Goodness gracious. What, Melissa?
I wouldn't mind that. That would be fun too, going back to Norway.
Yeah, I think that would be too, for sure. So I'm trying to think how many years that you guys were traveling around with your dad. Might have been it was a few years, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was many years. I mean, each movie took at least 3 years to make. So there was, some of that was in England and some of that was back in California doing the visual effects at the end. So it was a range of that, but it was a lot of patient work to get through making a movie. Yeah. It takes a long time to make a movie.
Yeah, that's for sure. Especially one of that proportion that, they're trying new things and working so diligently to get the whole concept, that they had, the idea that they had out. Melissa, now your sister was involved in this as well, and I think you could probably speak for her. But what was the best part of this for you? What was the best?
Well, I think the best part was being able to be together as a family when I had, my dad, Gary, my mom, Meredith, my sister, Tiffany, and myself, and we could all travel together and be wherever things were happening. So we got to have a lot of great family time together. And hanging out at the office was also part of that family time. So that was really a wonderful thing. Yeah. And also just being able to be a part of this process from the very beginning that has now become film history.
Right.
I'm very grateful every day that we got to be a part of that and that we got to help in some way to make that possible so that everybody else can enjoy it now.
Yeah. No, that it's absolutely wonderful to as I said, to be a part of that, the inception of it, really, that you were there at the very beginning and the pre-beginning in that. And I'm thinking that your dad must have been an awfully busy guy, working away on set. My goodness.
Yes, he was. He was very busy. He was always working. We learned how to work hard from him. He definitely modeled that well.
Yes, I think. Yeah, I believe that you guys did learn quite the work ethic from your dad, and but I think that he, despite his work hours, which were long. I mean, long days on film set is the norm, anyways. But to actually, I think to be able to have his family around was probably the icing on the cake for him.
Yes, we all felt like we were all making the movie. I think that was the thing. We're all together in that. And I think even more than hard work, I think what we really learned from him was that you really have to believe in something that seems impossible. And you really have to hold that belief so strongly, even against all odds and all sorts of doubt from the outside. And you have to still hold on to it and say, I believe this is possible. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And you have to hold that persistence of vision all the way through till it gets to the destination. And that's a whole other skill.
Well, I think I like that, because it's I mean, Walt said it's kind of fun to do the impossible, but that was really, really an amazing kind of journey for you. And I think what was really kind of neat is your family became of the bigger family, part of that bigger family, that Star Wars family. And I think you were so fortunate, Melissa, to have met and interacted with our beloved stars of that movie and get to know them, as people, which most of us are not able to do, right?
Yes, and they're all the nicest people. They are very, very sweet people, and it was wonderful to be able to spend that time with them.
Aww. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I just and just telling us a little bit about your life with the Star Wars universe, and I'm assuming that you had the good fun and opportunity to see not only the movies for the impact that it had on the crowd, but you actually got to see and enjoy yourselves on the screen, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's somebody who said to me once, they said, everybody out there gets to enjoy the movie for 2 hours, but we got to enjoy it for 3 years.
Oh, that's a good point. I like that. That for sure. That's just awesome. Well, again, Melissa, thank you so much. And if anybody is interested, Melissa and her sister Tiffany were actually known as the Jawa sisters, because I think you guys were the only were the only sisters. There weren't any like brothers or things like that as part of the Jawas. Is that correct?
Not that I know of. Yeah. So I think that's a unique thing we'll get to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, listen, have a great night and happy Star Wars Day to you.
Oh, thank you very much. May the force be with you.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Oh my gosh, I just love that. I just she's just such a lovely wonderful person, and she's just really a lot of fun, and her story is actually in the Star Wars edition of the Positively Disney series. And she and her sister worked very hard and actually kind of learned a little bit from, well, actually everything they know, they said that they learned from their dad, and they are actually in the industry and in a variety of different things. So I was just very grateful to get Melissa on the phone for a short while. And without further ado, we are going to get Todd Fisher on the line now, because he is another incredible human to talk all about our lovely Princess Leia. So I'm going to get him on the line for us right now, and we'll just get him on there. Hi, Todd.
Hello there.
Hey, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Are you guys in technical difficulties today? It's always like that.
Best laid plans. The audience doesn't know that we're actually phoning you off my phone for some reason. The audience are going to know now. For some reason.
Well, you remember there was way back in World War II, there was a guy named Kilroy and Murphy's Law, and we had a whole different set of the things that went haywire that didn't need to go haywire, that did go haywire. We could blame it on somebody.
Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. I'll blame it on Murphy tonight.
Murphy, Kilroy, Jehudi, there was all these things to blame it on.
Oh, sounds good, Todd. Well, Todd, I'm so grateful to have you on the show tonight. I just, I wish that I would have been able to meet Carrie, when she was with us, and I think you were the best thing to have here to talk about your lovely sister. And I'm curious to know, what were you guys like as children? I mean, I think
Well,
you had each other.
We were raised, I mean, certainly there was an unconventional aspect to how we were raised because we traveled with my mother. We were on the set all around the world with her, and we got to do some extraordinary things. But we were raised very, very traditionally in the sense that my mother, was raised traditionally, and she had, there was an aspect of how she was running the house to be quote unquote normal. Now, of course, there was no way, it was our version of normal.
Yeah.
But there were aspects of it that were normal. I mean, like Carrie and I were into scouting. Carrie was a Brownie and a Girl Scout. My mother was a troop leader.
Okay.
And all the Girl Scouts, most of those girls are still around. And when we did the memorial, about 30 of them showed up. And, there's a lot of old school tradition my mom sort of brought to our house, and we had all the usual things, the Easter egg hunts and the Christmas tree, and and we had the Thanksgiving dinners, and my mother was a patriot. She had gone to Korea many times and to entertain the troops and whatnot, and so we were raised in a very sort of traditional household. Now, on the other hand. You had Carrie, right? So there's, and so my mother had to implement different rules that most people don't have. I'll give you a good example. One was there's no singing at the table.
Oh.
Now, when you have to have a rule like that, there's some reason. So what would happen is my mother would be trying to have some serious conversation, and Carrie would be busting out into song.
Oh.
And that caused rules to be implemented. And so we have the sort of traditional and non-traditional, but there was certainly nothing normal about it. Carrie said in Bright Lights, the documentary that we did about our family, she said that my brother and I, meaning me and her, shared this sort of strange sense of what was normal.
Right.
And I think that was a pretty good way to put it, because there were aspects of it that were normal. But everybody loved hanging at our house. We had the coolest house in town.
I bet.
So it was a party house, but it was also a house, not a whole lot of rules. Great food.
Yeah.
Access to all sorts of entertainment and pools and fun, traditional aspects of fun.
Yeah, well, and I think it was a very warm and loving household. I think your mother loved you guys so much, and but I know, like she was a mom, and you guys were her greatest gifts, I'm sure, just as any mom.
Well, and she would say that, she always did. In fact, when she was asked a question like what was her greatest accomplishment, they're all expecting her to say singing in the rain or something, and she always said my children.
Yeah.
Because she was, first and foremost, she was a mom, and that was what she always wanted to be before she ever even dreamed or wanted to be an actress or a singer or a performer.
Yeah.
She was a mom first.
Yeah.
And she acted that way too.
Yeah.
Even to the extent of Carrie and I tattling on each other to mommy, Carrie hit me with a baseball bat, and around, all the typical kind of stuff that gets told, wasn't any different at our house.
Yeah, I know. A kid.
Well, there was one difference. My mother used to bring this up all the time. She says, I don't cook. But I can afford a great chef who can make you all the cookies and pies that all the other moms can maybe make. But, and that was true.
Yeah. Well, with this whole quarantine thing, my kids are actually telling me that my cooking is improving. So I envy your mom having a chef, because it definitely would have been a lot easier. It's funny.
I can assure you, my mother, if my mother were around right now, the cook would be living on lockdown with her, because she never would have tolerated inferior meals.
For sure. For sure. So, your mother being an actress, and did Carrie always want to be an actress? Is that something she always wanted?
Not really. When we were very young, I'm in Las Vegas right now speaking to you. Carrie and I were put into my mother's show in our early teens, and Carrie loved it. Not the first day, but when the spotlight hit her, she pretty much loved performing. We played the Desert Inn here back in the very early in the '60s.
Okay.
And we when we were first going to go out on stage together, we were standing in the wings waiting for my mom to call us, and she was panicking.
Uh-oh.
Didn't really even want to go out on stage. I almost had to drag her out with me.
Oh.
But once the spotlight hit her, she just melted right into it. And then, but Carrie was not thinking at that moment, I want to be an actress, I want to be this, I want to be that.
Okay.
She liked this live performing thing, and she was a great singer. And so for a few years, we did Vegas with my mom, and Carrie had her little segment in the show. And the Frontier Hotel actually offered Carrie and I to be the opening act over there, like a Donnie and Marie kind of thing. And Carrie was like, "Oh yeah, we want to do that." And my mom was like, "There's no way I'm going to let that happen." And I was like waving at my mother, like, "No, I don't want to do this." You talk about a nightmare for a 10-year, 11-year-old boy is when you have to put on makeup and wash your hair every day. I mean, give me a break. I was not digging that part of the equation at all.
Yeah. So she liked performing. Now I'm trying to think. So when you were on stage, were you singing as well?
Yes.
Oh, you were.
I was playing guitar and singing, and Carrie was singing, and then my voice started to change. Fortunately for me, and I just ended up playing guitar, which was way easier on me. Because I mean, having to sing Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog every night was wearing me out.
And then you probably sounded like one too, right?
Well, that's what happens at that age, voice up, down, up, down. It was a good thing. Bob Sidney was a great choreographer. He did all the choreography for the show, and arrangements by Jerry Fielding. So, I mean, this show was it was a high-end segment. My mother wasn't going to do anything halfway.
Right.
And so, but here's the interesting part. As Carrie got to be a little bit older, my mother was grooming her career there a little bit in terms of the live performing. Okay. And Carrie immediately rebelled against that and said, "Well, I'm gonna do some acting," And she went out and got the role in Shampoo playing against Warren Beatty.
Right.
And that was really her first serious acting thing. She did one thing before that, a television show, and I was in that as well, called The Sound of Children.
Okay.
And she, unlike me, I had an epiphany during that television show that I really didn't want to be an actor. And the reason was really simple, is that I got shoved into a trailer with a teacher, and I got to look out the window at all the cameramen and the set guys and the animal wranglers, and that's all this great action was happening outside, and then we were in there learning lines and having to do schoolwork. It didn't take a genius to figure out the better job was being part of the making of the movie. But Carrie she loved that experience. That is what led her to Shampoo.
Oh my goodness. So, I mean,
now, if you really want to analyze this, what led Carrie to Star Wars was her entire upbringing by my mother. My mother, being sort of this Hollywood royalty person, is raising this little princess, really a Beverly Hills princess. She's a little girl.
Yeah.
And she's truly being groomed as sort of a princess, sort of performer, on many different levels. My mother is trying to download to her all of her vast knowledge that she had even at that point.
Yeah.
And, and Carrie's digging some of it. At a certain point, you don't want to hear from your mom. You know how that goes.
Yes.
But it did lead up to that moment where Carrie walks into the room with George Lucas, and she's got that attitude, where there's nobody going to get in Darth Vader's face except Carrie. A woman's going to challenge him.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
She would.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how she learned that. I mean, she was, as you said, she was groomed. She was the Hollywood princess for real. Like she was, and I was just wondering, so like what was your reaction, you guys, when Carrie landed the role of Princess Leia? Because did your mom know she was going for that role? Like to audition for it? Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah. We knew, and Carrie really didn't know what to make of it, because if you read the script, it's very difficult at this moment in time to understand the void of understanding what George Lucas was thinking.
Okay.
Because the script, if you just forget about
about everything you know about science fiction for a minute, movie-wise,
right,
and you just read the script, I mean, you would not necessarily think this is going to be a genius movie.
okay,
And so, in her mind, even when I was visiting her in England during the first Star Wars filming, the sets were kind of impressive on some levels, but it was a lot of blue screen, so a lot of missing stuff. So she was wondering, and I was wondering, what this was really going to be. And in many ways, she thought that this could be the end of her career.
Okay. So,
it didn't look like anything. You didn't have any special effects, and the dialogue in some giant Wookiee suit walking around. And, you have to admit, some of this is pretty far out, no pun intended.
Yeah.
It's from a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the executives at Fox wanted nothing to do with it after a certain point.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking here that, your mom was a beautiful screen actress in a certain type of genre of movie. And I'm sure she was thinking that maybe Carrie would, go into that pathway as well. But then this whole thing started. So was your mom totally on board?
There's an interesting coincidence between those two things you just mentioned. So Debbie, when she did Singing in the Rain, was 19 years old, and that film went on to become, more or less, I would say,
iconic,
the greatest,
for sure,
most influential musicals of all time.
Yes.
And then Star Wars, Carrie's 19.
Gosh.
And it goes on to become the most influential science fiction film of all time, hands down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting parallel, and I don't know if people really understand how strange that is now that we all step back and look at it.
Well, it is, and oh my gosh, like Todd, 19 years old, that's like babies to me. I mean, that's so young. So young.
Well, and as the trilogy moved on, obviously she lost some of her baby fat and was feeling a little better about herself. By the time we get to Revenge of the Jedi, because I have her screenplay, and that is what it says. It's not Return of the Jedi. They didn't figure out that a Jedi Knight wouldn't take revenge on anybody till later, even after they already made up the posters. So they were making Revenge of the Jedi, and that's when Carrie had the metal bikini and got attached to a giant slug.
Yeah. You know what? I've seen that metal bikini. It's at a friend's house here in Seattle. He's one of the world's greatest collectors of Star Wars stuff. And if you walked in his house, you would recognize a lot of that stuff. I'll just tell you that.
I know. Well, tonight, we're actually, because it is May the Force be with you today, we are doing a live streaming show on Facebook and YouTube tonight where we're going to show my collection of stuff. And I have some of the weapons, and I have her little white outfit and her scripts and a lot of other things. And we're going to run film clips and home movies and kind of do a little tribute to Carrie and the Star Wars saga.
I love that. Where can people find you? And it's like at 6:30 tonight Pacific time, correct?
Yeah, so so my wife is Catherine Hickland, and so we're going to stream it on her YouTube channel, CatherineHickland.com, and we're also going to stream it on her Facebook page, Catherine Hickland. And so you find Catherine Hickland, the actress, you can find her. Yeah. And she'll be co-hosting the show, and we're going to have my parrot, which is Carrie's parrot, on the show, and Debbie's dog is going to be on the show, and we'll have some of the family pets.
Okay, no, that's.
But all the memorabilia is on the set. It looks really cool. I've got my droids, and I've got some cool artwork, and it's pretty spectacular looking.
Oh my goodness, I bet. Holy cow, you'd have your own museum almost, I would think. How did Star Wars change your family's life? Because you already had a not normal upbringing life, and so how did Star Wars end up changing for your life, you guys?
Well, it didn't alter my mother's world at all, and but it did alter Carrie's world, big time, because prior to that, Carrie was just Debbie Reynolds' daughter, and was pretty much touring with her and doing little things here and there, but not her. She wasn't a star unto herself. Right. So when Carrie became a huge star, that changed her world dramatically, and she started to move in different circles.
Mm-hmm.
This is when she started hanging out, eventually married Paul Simon and all that.
Right.
So I'm not saying that was a great move. They were not wrong for each other. They were just too much alike. I mean, it was like mixing two different. I mean, they're both so explosive personality-wise, and their intellect is so off the charts that you put them together, it's like making nitroglycerin.
Oh.
I mean, it was explosive.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I actually liked Paul, but it just, there's no way that made any sense, but they gravitated towards each other. So, her life just changed in that respect. And see, those were not Debbie's friends. Prior to that, we were hanging out with, the likes of Betty Davis and Gregory Peck and all of my mom's friends, even the older guys like Harold Lloyd we grew up with, the silent film stars.
Yeah.
We got to meet Charlie Chaplin, and we got to meet Groucho Marx and Buster Keaton, you name it. We got to really meet the royalty of Hollywood, going all the way back to the silent era. Mary Pickford, but all the way up to. It kind of ended, though, to James Garner and all of that, and all of a sudden, then Carrie started becoming friends with the new Hollywood royalty, which of course became Meryl Streep and all of that. Yeah. And so that changed our world in the sense that we spanned many generations all of the sudden.
Right.
Of royalty, Hollywood royalty. So we did get to be friends with a lot of people in the business.
Oh no, that's wonderful. And I mean, everybody's got a story too. I think that you would have had lots of fun with all those guys. So I mean, I know that Carrie was a little worried about the film because, I mean, as you said, when you were over there on set with her, there's a lot of blue screens and that, so you didn't quite exactly know what it was all going to look like. So did you end up going to the premiere with her?
Yeah, so, well, there was actually a screening at the 20th Century Lot prior to it being released to the public. And so we went over to 20th Century Fox. It's a pretty good-sized screen room. There were several hundred people in the room. It was pretty jam-packed. But Carrie didn't even want to go in, and it was getting late, like we were going to miss the entire screening, getting ready to close the door. She's chain smoking in the parking lot, and not one. And I had to like drag her in. By the time we got in, we were in the second row or even the first row.
Oh dear.
And she was like, "Oh my God!" And then like, this is a nightmare. Is literally what she said. Oh. And then all of a sudden, that battle cruiser flies overhead, and I looked at her and I said, "Wow, this is certainly not a B movie." But prior to that, she really was worried that this was the end of her film career.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I think that I know there's still some actors that never see their films like at all. They just refuse to. And I think that with such trepidation, worrying about what it was all going to look like, I can understand why she felt the way she did. Thank goodness she had you to muscle her into the theater to check it out.
She would have caught it. I mean, it was a few days later, we found ourselves in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, and the people were camping out on the sidewalks. And we had gone to movies our whole life in Hollywood. We had never seen people camping out on the street, never. So that was unique. And then we were kind of standing over in the corner by the big food dog, which is right next to where my mom's footprints are. Okay. And we were like, wow, this is good. This is like potentially going to be a major phenomenon. Right. And of course it was. Yeah. And ironically, 40 years later, I was standing on that same spot where they put Carrie's tribute right next to my mom in the ground there in the Grauman's courtyard. It's the only mother-daughter tribute in the courtyard, and there's a beautiful laser engraved plaque to Carrie right near my mom's handprints in that courtyard. Nice. And right at the exact spot where we were standing watching the people line up. And I go back every time they do a premiere, and I stand there and kind of flash back on what that was like, standing there with her looking out at the lines of people.
I was wondering if you went back, because I thought that's such a moment in time for you, such an important moment in time to do that flashback. That's really, I can't even imagine how you'd feel. You'd probably have a lot of emotions coming your way.
Today I was setting up this set for this show, and I was thinking to myself, the weird part about this? I didn't care about any of this until she passed. I mean, I kept the stuff because she kept throwing things away in the garage and giving things away. And so I would take things and put them in our warehouse with the museum stuff. And my mother kept preserving things, but Carrie kept throwing things away and giving things away. So I kept keeping all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I honestly never even thought much of it. And I certainly never participated. I used to go to all the premieres with Carrie as her date. We did that as just a tradition between us, right to the bitter end.
Yeah.
And we sat there together even at the following, the other screenings. And of course, I got to do one more with her, and it was a pretty major flashback. But the irony is that I never really cared that much about the franchise as far as I wasn't out there promoting Star Wars.
Right.
Now I'm promoting Carrie's and Debbie's legacy, and it includes Star Wars. And I'm mainly interested, obviously, in their legacy and the important role that they have played in the history of film and the history and an inspirational history of the way they live their lives.
Right.
And that's what I try to put back out to people is they're both remarkable examples of strong women.
Right.
Remarkable examples.
Yeah.
And each in their own way, very different. But very magical nonetheless.
I love that. And I'm actually just showing the audience, I actually have your book in front of me. And I love that. And it's such a poignant memoir that you did. Now, I mean, there's so much in here, and I really encourage people to go out and get your book called My Girls. Where can people get this, Todd? Because I really love it. It's very well done.
Well, it's out everywhere. It's on Amazon, Apple TV, and Kindle, and you can download. I did an audio edition as well where I read the book, which I thought was going to be a piece of cake, but it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life because when I got into the latter chapters, it was ripping my heart out, and it was so difficult to do. But nonetheless, I'm glad I did it, but it was torture. But the book was written as a tribute to them and our lives together, and I had to do it because there was a lot of nonsensical stuff being said and other authors writing,
stuff.
We'll call them, research pieces, and it was really annoying me because people were trying to talk about Carrie and Debbie in some authoritative way. And I was just really, my perspective at that point, I thought I'd better get it out there because I have so many stories, that need to get out there. In fact, the book is going to be turned into a series here at some point when this nightmare is over with that we're all in. But I mean, we're going to do a series on them. Based on the book. I think it'll be fantastic. But the book is quite a journey, as you pointed out. I didn't know where I was going when I first started to write it, and I didn't certainly know the title was going to be My Girls.
Yeah, I love that.
We were out touring doing the Bright Lights HBO documentary, and I kept doing Q&As at the end, and the publisher said to me, "What about the name My Girls for the book?" And I was like, well, "Where'd you get that from?" He goes, "You keep saying it." So apparently, every time I'm in a live Q&A and talking about them, I kept referring to them as My Girls.
Yeah.
And so
they are.
I said, well, if I say it that much, it must be so.
Exactly. I mean, this franchise and your involvement and Carrie's involvement spans so many decades. How did Carrie feel about the later movies, and especially with her daughter Billy? How did she feel about that? Because I mean, she grew as a person. I mean, the whole franchise grew. That must have been a very big deal, I would think.
Well, as you know, there was a hiatus in the beginning, in the middle there, where they put out these other and not many. We didn't really pay a lot of attention to all of that in the middle. In fact, there was a lot of fans that weren't digging that. And so when the final segment came back and they said, "Carrie, you want to be in the next one? Can we do Harrison and more?" She was like, at first she was thinking, "Oh, I don't know if this is something I want to get back into," but all of a sudden there was such an outpouring from the fans that wanted her to do it that she started to realize how important that was and what it would be. And she started doing these Comic-Con shows and stuff right around the same time. And it was insane. I mean, thousands of people literally would line up, and talk. And she never was really in touch with people on that level before. People would walk up and and just pour their hearts out about how she had inspired them to get through some difficulty, or they have bipolar or whatever issues, drug issues, and she was their inspiration, and the Star Wars role, Princess Leia, was our role model, and then the Princess Leia becomes the leader of the Resistance in real world, and that all of a sudden was magical, and that's what her whole life was about all of a sudden. So if you watch her in Bright Lights, there's a scene where she's talking, smoking a cigarette and drinking a Coca-Cola, and she says, I'm the closest thing you're going to get. I mean, she and I are one.
Yeah.
And she was beginning to not only grasp, but to realize that she and Princess Leia were one.
Yeah. Well, just as you're talking, I just got chills because I thought, there is nobody else that role would have been for, and it was her life. Like in many regards, it was very metaphorical for her life, and
for sure.
It's so as her brother, as the uncle, for Billy. How was that for you to see those guys on the screen together?
Well, first of all, Carrie was like at first. She threw in a very small part in the first one, and Billy was like, yeah, it'd be fun. At the time, Billy didn't even really want to be an actress. She was just, finishing school, and she did a small part in the first of the series coming back. And then by the time we get into the next one, she's getting really into it and thinking maybe that she wants to be an actress. Her father is Brian Lord, and he's a CAA executive and in an agency, and he wasn't trying to encourage her kind of one way or the other. He wanted her to do what she wanted to do.
Right.
But I think she's wanting, she's obviously now, you can look at her, she's pretty good, it's like, and she's falling into her own little zone.
Yes.
There's always a problem with the girls in our family, not wanting to be in the shadow of each other. Now, I've never really understood this, but like Carrie never wanted to be in the shadow of my mother, and Billy didn't want to be in the shadow of Carrie. And for whatever reason, the girls in this family think that way. I don't see the issue myself. I think
because you're a guy,
we should all be proud of each other.
Because you're a guy, Todd.
That's true. No, that's very true. And I have to say, I used to say when I was a young man, I used to get asked that question. I said, I don't know what the problem is. I like the shade.
Yeah.
She gives good shade. I mean, there really is truth to that. I mean, what is it about, being the daughter of?
Yeah.
But Carrie was like, I'm never going to be as pretty or as funny or as talented as. But guess what? She was, in her own way, as pretty, as funny, even more funny, and even more talented in many different categories. And Billy has her own gifts as well.
Yeah.
Now, the unique thing about Billy is she's got a gene pool jackpot also.
Sure.
Because she's got Carrie in there, and the wit of Carrie, and some of those writing genes in her, and then Brian is a really wonderful father and a very talented executive, and she's got some business savvy that none of the rest of the family had.
Oh,
you can read those books.
Yeah. No, I think that's really neat, and I think it's really neat for you to see. You've still got one of your girls, being Billy to watch as she flourishes in her own career. I think that must give you some great satisfaction to be able to see.
Well, she was Carrie's greatest joy, as my mother felt that way about Carrie and I. Billy was truly Carrie's greatest joy. Yeah. I mean, to the core of her being. She also was this mother gene. Yeah. And if it wasn't for Billy, I think we would have lost Carrie long earlier than we did, because Carrie used to essentially behave because of Billy, and or work harder in her sobriety and also in her mental illness issues, for her daughter. And that was, so she was her inspiration in many ways. And that was a burden for Billy in some ways, but now that it is where it is, you can look back on it and be proud.
Yeah. One thing I was just wondering, and then I want to talk a little bit about the Disney thing that we were talking about yesterday, you and I, but what do you think, in knowing Carrie and being with her for her whole life, what do you think was the best part of this happening to her? Like, because there's some people that say, the fame, or the money, or the people, or the fans, or what do you think was the best part of this for her?
Well, as it turns out, all the great adversity in Carrie's life also turned out to be the most inspirational stuff that she provided to the world. So her upbringing was this princess attitude, and we all were entertained by that when she steps up at Darth Vader's face and everybody else. And, you know, we dig that. But you know what? What really seems to have the largest impact was her wit, was the way that she laid herself open to the public, and you know, just was an open book, and literally wrote books about how she felt and what she was going through, and was a roadmap to other people to not only survive but excel in the face of adversity and create great art in the face of great adversity. Nobody dreamed, as we were looking at this little Girl Scout, you know, that this is where we were headed. So as much as you could say, oh, it's a terrible thing that she had bipolar disorder, it was also the magic in her. It is what created the art. It was part of what created the great art. So, you know, you look at a lot of the great artists in the world that you know, were quote unquote crazy, as they used to call them back then, like Van Gogh and people like that. What made them great artists was potentially the differences mentally. That is really what it is. Carrie's was what her bipolar disorder really just gave her this sort of gift to see the world radically different than the way you and I see it, and then articulate it like nobody else. And that articulation inspired people.
It's incredible. It absolutely. I know she's inspired a lot because I've talked to a lot of these people. And something that, you know, I don't think a lot of people realize this about Carrie, but she was a very kind and a very giving person. She you know, and I know that you told me the story, you know, about you guys, your last time shopping, and I was amazed. If you could just reiterate that, I think that it almost makes me want to cry, because she had such a big heart, and I want people to know that about her, because she was a very loving, very human being in spite of what she had to face.
Well, so the story you're talking about was really, it played out over her whole life. She just loved Christmas the most. And in fact, her Christmas tree and my mother's Christmas tree still stands to this day. Every day was Christmas in our house. And Carrie, we used to love to shop personally, but she always was shopping for everybody else as well. And even a total stranger or somebody she barely knew, she might recognize something that they collect or something that they wear, and had this very strange ability to remember the most trivial thing that may have happened, and you were out shopping and you bought something. I mean, years later, you would get something in the mail, or she would give you some gift, and you would be like, wow, I mean, where did this come from? I didn't even know she was paying attention. And I'm not talking about with my mother, and I'm talking about with third tier level friends. I mean, you know, like not, sure, you remember your family and you remember your first tier, maybe your second tier friends, but she was down into like some pretty lower level on the friend list, you know, just almost acquaintances at times. She'd say, oh, you know, I met this person over here when we were traveling in Scandinavia. Let's send him one of these.
Oh, wow.
You'd be like, okay.
Wow.
So I think you'll find that there's a lot of people, literally thousands of people, that received things from Carrie. She'd give you the shirt off her back, too. I mean, like literally to detrimental sense. Part of this had to do with the bipolar thing. You know, she literally would hand jewelry off of her fingers or clothing.
Oh,
I mean, it was, you know, my mother sometimes was running around going, no. Give me back the ring. She just gave you a $25,000 ring.
Oh,
you know, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the beauty of it, though. The beauty of it is she never liked opening gifts herself. She always liked distributing gifts. That went on to the very end of her life. She always liked, and no matter where she was in the world, she always brought me back stuff from wherever she was. Even the last plane ride that she didn't
make it
really come home from had gifts for me on it. And so, you know,
Todd.
we shared that our whole life. I had a gift waiting for her, I knew the things that she loved, and she knew the things I loved better than anybody on earth.
Yeah.
To this day, I would buy gifts for her well in advance because you couldn't find, last minute the kinds of things that she liked. So I would buy things at auctions, and I would store them at the ranch and then dole them out to her at birthdays and Christmases.
Fun.
And I still have an inventory of those great gifts sitting there.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, Todd, what a good brother you were. Oh my gosh, an R.
Well,
still.
we were like best little buddies. I mean, we were best. I was brought into this world to be Carrie's companion. I've told the story in my book about how my mother didn't want Carrie to be a only child, so she literally chased my father down to get pregnant and did.
Yeah.
And I'm here as evidence of that. And then the follow-up to that is when she passed, she told me the day, literally moments before she left the earth, that she would go be with Carrie because she knew I couldn't follow. But I was brought here to literally brought into this earth to be Carrie's companion.
Yeah.
And we had spans of time where we didn't hang out. She'd go away to do different things, and we'd miss each other for months. But, I mean, the moment that we got in close proximity, it didn't matter about anything else. There was this brother-sister bond that was there. She'd get pissed at me, and I had to be the heavy sometimes with the drugs and other things. I mean, I had to play because I was the only one that couldn't be fired. So sometimes I had to play the heavy role.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, Todd?
We had an unbreakable bond.
Yeah, and you're still carrying the torch for both your mom and your sister, which I think is a beautiful thing. I mean, look what you're doing.
I always will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forever.
So, Todd, I think it was so neat when you shared yesterday with me, because we are the Positively Disney podcast, that your mom and Walt Disney were actually friends, weren't they?
They were. In fact, Walt Disney met my mother sometime prior to the opening of Disneyland. And I sent you a picture of my mother and father at the opening of Disneyland. And then they remained friends after that. In fact, Walt Disney wrote a letter, an open letter some time ago. You could probably find it somewhere. But it in effect said that if he could only have a few stars like Debbie Reynolds in his stable of stars, he could be a big studio like MGM. This is back when MGM was, still the greatest studio and the biggest studio. Yeah. And so he was always very enamored with her talent. And so they became good friends. My mother actually, back in the early 60s, created a charity, she and others, called the Thalians, which was ironically a mental health charity for children.
Wow.
And we had no idea at that point that Carrie, was going to be needing that. But at any rate, she built a wing on Cedar Sinai. Now, when she did this, they'd have these big fundraisers, and she went to Walt Disney, and she said, "Will you be willing?" I don't know why she thought this, by the way, but she did. Yeah. Would you be willing to design the award that we give, like an Academy Award for they called Mr. or Mrs. Wonderful, who was the philanthropist of the year.
Okay.
So he did, and he took Goofy, and he has Goofy holding the performing arts mask, the sad, the happy and sad mask from the performing arts, comedy tragedy mask. Yeah. And it's a great piece. He designed it, and that became the Thalians Award each year. And then he himself received that award one year. I think I sent you maybe a picture of him and her together.
I love it.
But here's the funny, when she wanted him to do that, he said to her, "What made you come, directly to me to do this?" And she said, "Well, I learned a long time ago, Mr. Disney, when you want to get something done, you go to the head of the horse." Because, from Texas, where we're from, if you go to the tail of the horse, you know what you get.
Oh, yeah.
You're certainly never going to get to the head of the horse and get the job done. So that was her philosophy, go to the head of the horse. And that was what, kind of cemented their friendship for life.
Wow. That is amazing. I think that, just the fact that, I mean, obviously you went to the parks and that, but to actually have your mom, good friends with Walt, that's pretty. Now, I'm just trying to think here. Did you ever meet Walt yourself? Did you and Carrie?
When I was very, very young, I may have, but honestly, I don't remember it. But I'll tell you this, I do remember this. My mother always spoke of him in the most admirable ways. She was so enamored with his gifts and talent, his creative skills, his vision. She just thought he was the most creative guy ever. and I really admired him. And that was rare because she was around a lot of creative people. So, she didn't brag on people or speak, over the top about people. But with him, there's a handful of people he was among.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, and it's interesting because there's so many people that feel and think that way now. But I mean, right from the get-go, it kind of shows you, who he was and that sort of that human side. They were friends, for crying out loud, you
can imagine that Disneyland he was George Lucas of his day in many ways. But people thought he was completely off his rocker.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't. The Anaheim, for crying out loud. Yeah. I mean, they just, again, they were all people. You're going to do what? You're going to make a small world and a this and that. I mean, it's the visionaries of this world are always met with opposition because you've stepped out of the norm. You've gotten out of that gray area that we live in. And so the great ones step very far out. Yeah. And that's what Lucas did. That's what Disney did all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And look at you. You have had I mean, I know that you said that you were born here to be Carrie's companion, and I know that and understand that, but you were born here to be much, much more than that. You are definitely in not only your writing and in your own work and in your own interactions. I think people are, I'm just very grateful for you, actually, Todd, to be on the show tonight, because you can tell us a side of Carrie and a side of your lives that are important. It's the human side. It's the down to the grassroots side that a lot of people are not so aware of, and
I do confirm a lot of that too. I am still here, and I am the voice in the wilderness. Yeah. Even when Disney was not, they were for a while thinking about not putting Carrie in the most recent Star Wars film after she had passed. I was very outspoken about the fact that as Carrie's brother, I felt that she should be in that continue in that part. And the fans, of course, agreed. And fortunately, Disney came around to thinking our way. Right. And so I am a voice crying in the wilderness sometimes, and I do carry on what I can of their legacy, inspirations and things, and like tonight's show that we're doing now, and what I'm about to do, I'm going to do in another half an hour or so. At 6:30, we're going to use the show, and I'll be showing some really cool early film clips and home movies of Carrie and I as little kids, and you'll be able to. You can really understand and see the journey, that she was on in something. I do a real fast montage of her growing up in 16 millimeter film clips. Oh, pretty remarkable. Yeah. To watch her grow up from I think it's 1 year old all the way up to a teenager in 3 minutes. Oh, okay. but that's okay. And the fact that you have footage, I think is wonderful, because not everybody has that. Today, right? Footage of their childhood. Well, we have massive archives. I always tease everybody. I say, other than the Kennedy family, we were the most photographed children on earth. Yeah. I think that's true, because I literally have 29,000 scanned images in our archives. Wow. It doesn't include the 250 hours of home movies. Oh, so we got a lot. Oh my gosh. Todd, before I let you go, because there's some people that made it on a little bit later in that, can you just reiterate what you are doing tonight, because I want to get as many people on there as possible. So we're going to, at 6:30 tonight, on my wife's website, is CatherineHickland.com, is a YouTube channel, and she also then has Catherine Hickland, I believe it's on Facebook. And we'll do a live stream tonight at 6:30. I've got the family archives out. I've got the film clips out. I've got Carrie's costume. I've got her weapons, her scripts. I've got the droids are coming out, Yeah. So we have a beautiful little set. My wife and I are going to just tell Carrie stories, run film clips, run home movies, some stuff never seen before. I'm going to run some footage of Carrie doing a monologue in China that's absolutely incredible in 1986. Oh. And anyway, just a lot of rare, kind of never seen stuff. So if you are a Carrie fan or a Star Wars fan, obviously you will like seeing some of these things. Absolutely. No, that's wonderful, Todd. I know that
I'm going to grab a quick dinner before you guys go on.
Yeah, I'll just take mine with me.
Yeah, well, yeah, lucky for you. That's great. Oh, thank you again, Todd, so much. And I know you've got a busy evening ahead of you here. And thanks for carving out a little bit of time for me.
Well, I really appreciate that you're, let's just say, keeping the Disney legacy alive and, connecting all the stories that made it what it was. And I really appreciate I'm a bit of a historian because of the way my mom raised us. We really appreciate the history of things. And so I think that the Disney legacy is truly that, a great, great legacy from a great, great man.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it. And, I have to say it back to you. May the force be with you. And I will be catching your show in a little bit. All right.
May it be with us all in this difficult time. That is what it's all about. Yeah. But the force is alive and well.
Yes.
And that is what's important. And it's alive and well in all of us.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. Well, gosh, Todd, it's just been wonderful talking with you tonight. Thank you so much. And I'll let you go, and I will be watching with I'm just so excited for you guys that you'll having
get there'll be some good laughs, I promise.
Okay, sounds good. All right, you guys take good care, all right?
All right, thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Oh, there you go, guys. It's just what a wonderful human. As I said, it's just really nice to have these folks around and can share things. And I wasn't sure about his show tonight, and so I'm very happy to hear about that. And so that's in about 50 minutes. So I will be letting you guys go here. I hope you enjoyed my guest tonight, and would like you all to take really good care. And may the fourth be with you as well. So until next week, bye for now.